There is a dangerous myth that evil announces itself. Most people imagine that harmful individuals arrive with obvious warning signs, dramatic outbursts, or visible cruelty. Reality is far more unsettling. The most destructive people rarely reveal themselves through grand displays. Instead, they leave a trail of subtle behaviors that most people overlook. They blend in, they smile, they cooperate, they say the right words, they wear the right masks, and because they understand human nature better than most, they know exactly how to avoid detection. The truth is that hidden evil survives in the shadows of normality. It flourishes behind excuses, disguises itself as confidence, and often presents itself as charm. The most dangerous individuals do not need to dominate a room with aggression. They influence quietly, they manipulate patiently, they observe carefully. And by the time their intentions become obvious, the damage has often already been done. Today, we are going to examine 5 chilling behaviors that frequently reveal hidden evil. Not awkwardness, not social mistakes, not personality differences. We are talking about patterns that repeatedly appear in people who exploit, manipulate, and harm others without remorse. The first behavior is the enjoyment of confusion. Most people feel uncomfortable when another person is confused. A healthy mind naturally wants clarity. It wants understanding. It wants communication. But there are individuals who experience something very different. They enjoy confusion because confusion creates power. Watch carefully how certain people communicate. Their stories change. Their explanations shift. Their promises become vague. Their answers never fully answer the question. Every conversation feels like trying to grab smoke with your bare hands. This is not always accidental. Some individuals deliberately create uncertainty because uncertainty gives them control. When people are confused, they hesitate. When they hesitate, they become easier to influence. When they doubt their own understanding, they become more dependent on someone who claims to have the answers. Notice how these people react when asked for clarification. A sincere person usually welcomes clarity. A manipulative person often resists it. They may become irritated. They may change the subject. They may attack the person asking questions. They may accuse others of misunderstanding them instead of explaining themselves. The goal is not communication. The goal is control, and that should concern you. The second chilling behavior is the absence of genuine accountability. Everyone makes mistakes. Every human being has failures, poor decisions, and moments they wish they could take back. Accountability is not about perfection. Accountability is about ownership. Hid evil often reveals itself through an endless search for someone else to blame. Observe what happens when consequences appear. A healthy individual examines their role in the situation. They acknowledge errors, they learn, they adapt. But some people seem physically incapable of responsibility. Every setback becomes someone else's fault. Every failure becomes evidence of unfair treatment. Every conflict becomes proof that everyone around them is the problem. Years pass, jobs change, relationships begin and end, friendships collapse, opportunities disappear, and yet their story never changes. They remain the innocent victim in every chapter. This pattern is not merely annoying, it is revealing because accountability requires self-examination. Self-examination requires honesty. And honesty threatens individuals who have built their identity around manipulation and self-preservation. Pay close attention to people who never admit fault. Over time, they reveal far more than they intend. The third behavior is pleasure in the suffering of others. This is one of the most disturbing indicators because it often appears in subtle forms. Most people think cruelty must be obvious. They imagine shouting, threats, or physical aggression, but hidden cruelty often wears a smile. Watch for individuals who seem energized by humiliation. Notice those who repeatedly target vulnerable people. Observe those who disguise insults as jokes and then criticize others for being sensitive. There is a significant difference between humor and humiliation. Humor creates connection. Humiliation creates hierarchy. One invites people in. The other pushes people down. Pay attention to moments when someone else experiences failure, embarrassment, or hardship. Does this individual show concern? Do they show empathy? Or do they appear strangely entertained? Some people collect the pain of others as a source of emotional satisfaction. They enjoy watching confidence collapse. They enjoy witnessing vulnerability. They enjoy seeing others struggle because another person's weakness temporarily makes them feel stronger. That reaction should never be ignored, because character is often revealed most clearly when another human being is at their lowest point. The fourth behavior is strategic kindness. Candidness itself is not suspicious. Genuine kindness is one of the most powerful forces in human life. But strategic kindness is something entirely different. Strategic kindness is not given freely. It is invested. It comes with hidden expectations. It functions as a transaction disguised as generosity. These individuals study human psychology carefully. They understand that favors create obligations. They understand that gifts create pressure. They understand that generosity can be weaponized. At first, they seem extraordinarily helpful. They appear supportive. They appear generous. They appear selfless. But over time, a pattern emerges. Every favor becomes leverage. Every act of kindness becomes evidence of a debt. Every gift becomes a future negotiation. The kindness was never free. It was a contract that only one person knew existed. The fifth and perhaps most chilling behavior is the absence of remorse. Remorse is one of the defining features of healthy human psychology. When decent people hurt others, they experience discomfort, they reflect, they regret. They attempt repair, but some individuals display an astonishing lack of emotional consequence. They lie without hesitation. They betray without guilt. They exploit without reflection. And when confronted, their concern is not the harm they caused. Their concern is being caught. A person with remorse fears causing damage. A person without remorse fears exposure. One protects people. The other protects image. Words can be rehearsed. Appearances can be manufactured. Masks can be perfected. But behavior, repeated over time, always tells the story. And for those willing to observe carefully, the story is often written long before the final chapter arrives. The reason these behaviors are so difficult to recognize is that most people are searching for villains, not patterns. They are looking for dramatic moments, explosive confrontations, and unmistakable signs of danger. But hidden evil rarely arrives with a warning label. It survives because it understands expectations. It knows what people want to see, and it becomes exactly that. Some of the most dangerous individuals spend years building an image that shields them from suspicion. They understand the power of reputation. They understand that people trust familiarity. They understand that once a certain image is established, evidence that contradicts that image is often ignored. This is why observation matters more than impression. An impression is what someone wants you to believe. Observation is what their behavior repeatedly demonstrates. There is a profound difference between the two. Many people spend their lives becoming experts in appearances. They learn how to speak confidently. They learn how to smile at the right moments. They learn how to project authority. They learn how to appear trustworthy. But character is not performance. Character is what remains when performance becomes inconvenient. Anyone can appear kind when kindness costs nothing. Anyone can appear honest when the truth benefits them. Anyone can appear loyal when loyalty requires no sacrifice. The real test comes when values become expensive. Watch people when they are frustrated. Watch people when they are denied what they want. Watch people when they believe no one important is watching. Those moments often reveal more than years of carefully managed appearances. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming intelligence and morality are connected. They are not. Some of the most intelligent people in history have used their intelligence to help humanity. Others have used it to manipulate, exploit, and destroy. Intelligence is a tool. Character determines how that tool is used. A brilliant mind without conscience can become extraordinarily dangerous. Such individuals are capable of planning years ahead. They understand emotional leverage. They understand persuasion. They understand weakness. They understand fear. And unlike impulsive aggressors, they often operate with patience. Patience is what makes them difficult to identify. Most people expect harmful intentions to reveal themselves quickly. But strategic individuals understand timing. They know that trust is easier to gain gradually. They know that resistance weakens over time. They know that familiarity creates comfort, and comfort lowers defenses. This is why many victims later describe a feeling that seems impossible to explain. They say things like, "I should have seen it sooner." They say, "The signs were there." They say, "Something always felt off." Yet they ignored those feelings because the evidence seemed too small. A strange comment, a subtle contradiction, a brief glimpse of cruelty, a momentary lack of empathy, an unexplained lie. Individually, these incidents seemed insignificant. Together, they formed a pattern, Pertal's matter, because isolated events can deceive. Anyone can have a bad day. Anyone can lose their temper. Anyone can make a mistake. But repeated behaviors tell a different story. Repeated behaviors reveal priorities. Repeated behaviors reveal values. Repeated behaviors reveal motives. The challenge is that human beings naturally seek explanations that preserve harmony. When someone behaves badly, most people search for reasons. Maybe they are stressed. Maybe they are tired. Maybe they are struggling. Maybe they did not mean it. And sometimes those explanations are true, but sometimes they become excuses that blind us to reality. There comes a point when repeated behavior must be accepted as information, not possibility, not speculation. Information. A person who repeatedly deceives is providing information. A person who repeatedly manipulates is providing information. A person who repeatedly harms others without remorse is providing information. The question is whether we are willing to accept it. Another chilling trait, often associated with hidden evil, is selective morality. These individuals often speak passionately about principles. They talk about fairness. They talk about honesty. They talk about respect. They talk about justice. Yet somehow those principles apply only when convenient. The rules change depending on who benefits. The standards shift depending on who is being judged. When they make mistakes, circumstances are responsible. When others make mistakes, character is responsible. When they break trust, there is an explanation. When others break trust, there is condemnation. This double standard is not accidental. It exists because morality is being used as a tool rather than a guide. The goal is not truth. The goal is advantage. And advantage can be a powerful motivator. History repeatedly demonstrates that people are capable of extraordinary acts when convinced they deserve power, control, or superiority. That is why humility matters. Humility acts as a safeguard. It reminds people that they can be wrong. It reminds people that they are imperfect. It reminds people that other human beings possess equal value. Without humility, ego expands. And when ego expands unchecked, empathy often shrinks. The individual begins to view themselves as exceptional, different, entitled, above ordinary standards. This mindset creates fertile ground for harmful behavior because once someone believes they deserve more than everyone else, almost any action can be justified. The lie becomes necessary. The betrayal becomes reasonable. The manipulation becomes strategic. The cruelty becomes deserved. And with every rationalization, the distance between conscience and action grows larger. This process rarely happens overnight. It develops gradually, one compromise at a time, one excuse at a time, one justification at a time, until eventually actions that once seemed unthinkable become routine. That is one of the most unsettling truths about human behavior. The greatest dangers often emerge through small decisions repeated consistently over time. Not dramatic transformations, not sudden revelations, slow erosion, slow corruption, slow surrender of principles. This is why awareness is essential, not paranoia, not cynicism, awareness. Awareness means paying attention to reality, even when reality is uncomfortable. Awareness means evaluating behavior rather than promises. Awareness means understanding that words are easy, but patterns are expensive. Anyone can make a promise. Anyone can make a claim. Anyone can describe who they believe they are. But behavior answers a different question. Behavior reveals who they choose to be. And in the end, that is the only answer that truly matters. There is another reason hidden evil is so effective. It understands the psychology of trust better than most people do. Trust is one of the most valuable resources human beings possess. Every friendship, every partnership, every family, every organization depends on it. Without trust, cooperation becomes impossible. Without trust, relationships collapse under the weight of constant suspicion. Most people build trust through consistency. Manipulative individuals often build trust through strategy. That distinction changes everything. Consistency creates trust naturally. Strategy creates trust deliberately. One is the byproduct of character. The other can be a calculated objective. This is why some harmful individuals appear trustworthy for remarkably long periods of time. They understand the signals people associate with credibility. They understand body language. They understand social expectations. They understand how to create emotional connections quickly. They know when to agree. They know when to compliment. They know when to listen. They know when to appear vulnerable. And because they understand these behaviors so well, they can manufacture impressions that feel authentic. But eventually, every performance faces a challenge. No one can perfectly maintain a false identity forever. Pressure exposes weaknesses. Conflict exposes priorities. Stress exposes motives. That is why difficult moments are often the most revealing. When circumstances become uncomfortable, masks begin to crack. The individual who appeared patient suddenly becomes hostile. The individual who appeared generous suddenly becomes controlling. The individual who appeared compassionate suddenly becomes indifferent. The transformation seems shocking, but in reality, the person did not change. The conditions changed. The mask became harder to maintain. And for a brief moment, reality became visible. One of the most chilling behaviors associated with hidden evil is the ability to switch personalities depending on the audience. Observe how certain individuals treat people who possess power compared to those who possess none. Observe how they behave toward superiors. Observe how they behave toward strangers. Observe how they behave toward service workers. Observe how they behave toward people who cannot offer them anything. The differences can be extraordinary. To one person, they are charming. To another, they are dismissive. To one person, they are respectful. To another, they are cruel. To one person, they are generous. To another, they are exploitative. The behavior changes because the objective changes. Their actions are not guided by principles. Their actions are guided by opportunity. This creates confusion because different people experience completely different versions of the same individual. One person sees kindness, another sees manipulation.